Welcome, age of vintage society. Larry Hagman loved women more than a man should. He lived a complete depravity with large dinners and naked women moving around his house, but no one knew. He was successful in hiding it from the world, but now the world knows. Did Larry Hagman love women more than a man should? As you all know how much I appreciate you, my viewers, so I want to thank you for your generous comments and for the Patreons. This video would not have been possible without you, and thanks to those who watched the video right to the end. Subscribe if you are new here, and if you want to support my work, please visit my Patreon page. Larry Hagman, the prolific womanizer. Larry Hagman wasn't perfect. He was far from it, even though he had mastered the art of presenting himself to be a perfect man and husband to wife Madge. The man embodied everything that was the bad side of Hollywood, or the side people expected Hollywood stars to have. According to his daughter, he so completely embraced the sex, drugs and rock and roll ethos of that time that he lived it to the end of his days. The man was nicknamed the Mad Monk of Malibu because of the large dinner parties he hosted. His wife did a lot of work ensuring that these dinner parties were possible. She even involved her sisters to assist her. Her sister designed the large stained glass window, which, when lit, would display giant psychedelic mushrooms, flowers and butterflies. Larry also helped. He ensured that alcohol flowed as he stocked the home's bar with cheap champagne, beer and other kinds of wine. He also provided psychedelic drugs, which his family took together. The guest would dance before this mirror, a disco ball hanging overhead, adding to the psychedelic effect. After the dancing, the guests and household members would gather in the jacuzzi and have a long soak. Afterward, they would all get out of the pool and into robes that his wife and her sisters made. No wonder they called him the Mad Monk. He believed that the family that bathes together stays together. It is an interesting spin on family, considering that the bathing together put his daughter, Christina, in compromising situations. No wonder she wrote her The Eternal Party, Understanding My Dad, Larry Hagman, the TV star America Loved to Hate, which seems like an expose on Larry. If people were unsure about Larry's shenanigans, the book has made it clear. The entertainment Larry offered made his house an attraction of sorts to friends and strangers alike. People wanted to come, and sometimes, after he had gone through a few bottles himself, he'd go and bring drunks who had gotten wasted by the road to his house to sober up. This sort of attitude doesn't preserve the security of his family. However, it wasn't the homeless people who went after his daughter. On one occasion it was his more well-to-do guests. Almost everyone who walked through our door was someone I saw wet and naked before they left our house, Christina said. But as she was seeing them wet, so did they appreciate her youthful body. These people thought seeing her nudity was a license for unnecessary physical attention. She thought she had gotten used to the situation, as she would assert herself and chase high and drunk men from her room. However, her willpower wasn't enough to tell off one of Larry's friends, Dennis Hopper, as he followed her around the house before declaring he wanted to have his way with her. Dennis Hopper and Larry Hagman had issues at the time due to Hopper's treatment of Peter Fonda over the royalties of hit film Easy Rider. Hopper came around with John Paul Getty III, and after the two got high they couldn't leave. This led to Dennis's rather animalistic behaviour towards Christina. Thankfully, the girl took the family car keys, made a mad dash to her room, escaped through her room window, and drove to her friend's house. Spooky, isn't it? The thing is, Christina acted that way only because she had been in a similar situation, but at the time she was younger and powerless to do anything against it. That time she returned from school, the person who was to watch over her and her sibling was somehow not around, and 3 boys were waiting for her in her room. The leader of the boys threatened to squish her head like a tomato if she didn't comply. She was afraid and complied, and after he had his way, he told the hapless girl not to tell anyone who would ruin her reputation, and so she kept it a secret, told no one, and dealt with the resulting mental anguish by herself. It turned out she was good at keeping secrets like her father. Keeping secrets was a core part of his personality, and it helped him keep his booze drinking, pot smoking and LSD licking out of the prying eyes of Hollywood tabloids. His lifestyle of hosting elaborate parties and a mini-nudist home was also careful, but secrets never have a way of being forever hidden. Somehow, some way, light finds them. Larry Hagman was born to the great actress Mary Martin and lawyer Ben Jackson Hagman in Fort Worth, Texas on the 21st of September 1931. His parents divorced when he was 5, and in 1936 he moved in with his maternal grandmother while his mother was chasing her Hollywood career and married Richard Halliday from the Paramount studio that signed her. At this time his mother was in New York, seeking to revive her Broadway career. Her son was just an appendage that she could easily dispose of. At his grandmother's side, Larry learned how to drink, and according to his daughter, the drinking was to rebel against his grandmother, who was reportedly a strict woman. His grandmother died, and he returned to his mother and her husband in what many considered a marriage of convenience. According to Christina, her grandmother's new husband's style and manner suggested he was homosexual. Also, the hottest news in Hollywood then was Mary Martin was a lesbian. Nonetheless, the couple share a daughter together, and there hasn't been any explicit admission about the otherwise nature of their sexuality. Larry moving with his mum further divided their relationship, as she was not really present, and her husband Richard didn't like him. So Hagman didn't stay so long with his mum before she sent him off to boarding school. However, the habits which Larry had picked up caused his expulsion, and he chose not to return to his mother's place. He asked to live with his father Ben. Ben was delighted his son had come to him, and Larry too was excited he had gone to Ben, as Ben was the kind of authority he wanted in his life, an authority that allowed him to smoke, drink and hunt. However, Larry's love for Ben didn't extend to him taking up a career as a lawyer, as his father wanted. The arts called him, and he answered the call, going to college to major in dance drama at least for a year. His dropout from school gave him the opportunity to start his career as an actor early, starting with the stage first. His first stage experience was in Texas at the Margot Jones Theatre in the Round. He went to New York and appeared in Taming the Shrew, a New York City Centre production. Afterward he spent a year in regional theatre, and even though he and his mother weren't on the best of terms, he moved to England for 5 years as a cast member of South Pacific, Mary Martin's stage show. Although in the 1970s he reconciled with his mum after the death of his stepfather, the two would remain close until colon cancer eventually claimed her life in 1990. After being on his mother's stage show, he joined the army, but this didn't kill his artistic side. Instead, he produced and directed several army series for the army. With him completing his stint in the army, Larry returned to the warm embrace of Broadway and also off-Broadway plays. He featured in Comes a Day, Once Around the Block, Korea, and The Warm Peninsula, and others. He got married too in between, and his wife Madge, a fashion designer, helped him get other stage roles. Madge held the fort down for him, especially in the early days of his career when money was minimal. She was a devoted wife and remained so even in the face of Larry's transgressions. When Larry began to make money and rise, his darker side emerged. While he outwardly praised his wife, he would deride her for those he was closer to. He once told one of his many women, Mary Ann Effingham, that he was not a happy man, especially at home. He equated being at home to being in prison. However, Mary Ann at least let it know the preferences of the man in bed. Apparently Larry loved, liked gentle but kinky love-making, and also didn't mind using toys. The public saw a stable marriage, a facade held only because of his wife's devotion to him. His wife even helped him with his fantasies by helping him make elaborate costumes and also preparing meals for his usual large dinner parties. Still, Hagman made his wife out to be a hangman of sorts, using her to cut people off from his life. When he wanted to remove an overly familiar member of his many visitors to his house, he would say, "Madge just does not like them." It is fitting how his Madge excuse always became forgotten regarding his many dalliances. Well, he was good at hiding his dalliances from his family. His daughter only found out definitively about one of these affairs when he accidentally sent a text he wanted to his lover to her. He wasn't ashamed of the text, and he, according to Christina, told her everything about the woman excitedly. While Christina spared her mum the horror of confirming the rumours which had become too much to bear for her, already her father had stopped sleeping with her mum and preferred the bed of his paramours and young mistresses. Still, it must have broken Christina's heart to see her mother become heavily reliant on alcohol more than usual. Still, her mother couldn't outdrink her dad. His expertise in secrecy meant a stable career, and so, after starring and having a better role for 2 years in the soap opera The Edge of Night, he had a much bigger break in I Dream of Jeannie, an NBC sitcom which aired for 5 years, although the film that fully broke him out also threatened to end his career permanently. I Dream of Jeannie had him cast alongside the delectable Barbara Eden, who played a sexy 2,000-year-old Jeannie who fell in love with astronaut Tony Nelson that found her bottle. Larry exploded on set, and it was a literal explosion. He shat his pants, wax spilled out of his ears, peed himself too, and was bawling like a kid. The man was already feeling hard done by the script, which he felt kept him in the shadows of his co-lead. What many people didn't know was Larry Hagman had quit smoking, and his wife's diet pill cold turkey. He had unknowingly gotten addicted to his wife's diet pill, which usually gave him a burst of energy. When they went to the hospital for a refill, they discovered they couldn't have any more. Everything compounded into what became his messiest day on set. Before the day of his explosion, he had become a rude, irritable man who was snapping at everyone and everything. On the day of his explosion, he snapped at the air conditioner and informed everyone that it was screaming in his ears. When no one replied, he took the axe from the fire retardant and slashed the cord connecting the air conditioner. He didn't know that the cord he struck was the studio's power cord. Realizing what he had done, he made a mess of himself and was taken to a therapist who helped him calm down. Some say the therapist introduced him to LSD. Hagman himself claimed it was his musician friend David Crosby that did so after a concert. Hagman claimed the discovery of LSD helped him find healing. Dad might have been even more of a drinker if he hadn't met Jack Nicholson, who turned him onto pot, the substance he fell permanently in love with. Christina recalled that the first time her father tried pot he was happy, and Nicholson intended this as Nicholson felt Larry was drinking too much. Till his death, Larry preferred marijuana because it made him feel good without having a hangover. His career didn't end with his outburst, but he had other moments that could have tanked his career. He, along with the likes of Jane Fonda, were critical of the American involvement in Vietnam, and he performed some acts which Americans may consider un-American, and considering how Hollywood took care not to mix with politics, it could have tanked his career. Despite what would seem like him intentionally destroying his acting career, he would become the man everyone loved to hate in Dallas. J.R. Ewing was the character he played with considerable skill. Perhaps it was because of how the role mirrored some aspects of his life. While Dallas ended after 14.5 seasons, with a reboot coming later in Larry's career, Larry's depravity didn't end until his death. Heck, Larry had a woman in his bed when he was in ICU dying of cancer, but he didn't get all the women. At least he didn't get with Barbara Eden, and as it turned out, Barbara wouldn't have minded if he did. I loved him a lot, she said. The star revealed she and Larry clicked and had the same rhythm. She genuinely enjoyed sharing the same set with him, and their on-screen chemistry resulted from her positive feelings toward him off-screen. Larry's life of depravity will eventually catch up with him, as in the late 90s he would become so sick that he almost died. All the time he spent binging on drinks caught up with him, as his liver had become damaged. He needed a liver transplant, and he got it. For a while he turned a new leaf. He didn't drink as he healed. This period in 1995 would be the only time he would be sober. He resumed his ways with the booze, and he didn't stop until he had throat cancer, which could have been from blitzing through cigarettes as he did. Although he couldn't smoke at the time, he met with other women in those periods, and his daughter knew as there was a text message incident. The cancer claimed his life, and all his lovers who had safely tucked away all made an appearance. They claimed the best periods of their lives were the times they spent with her father. For Christina this was quite a revelation, as she didn't understand her father a bit, and there were ladies who mourned him for giving them happiness. If anything, Larry was true to himself, but it might seem that part of him regretted the life he led. His daughter Christina claimed she heard him asking forgiveness on his deathbed. Whose forgiveness was he asking for? Nobody truly knows. Larry left us with a mystery to remember him by after his passing. Maybe Larry Hagman had a huge appetite for women, but Rod Cameron had his own taste as well. How Rod Cameron married his mother-in-law. Watch this video.